Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching The Rings of Power Episode 4, and stuff is still moving forward a little bit at a time, but we do get more stuff each episode, so this one actually focuses only on 3 out of the 4 different plot lines, which, I think that is the reason why it seems to be moving. It's kind of a slow burn, this is like high fantasy, slow burn, it's going to take its time. So the 3 plot lines we get this time: Galadriel, we get the Southlands, and we get Elrond and the mining, the dwarves, Durin, and all that stuff, right? Okay, so let's start with Galadriel. So this one is, I feel like we're finally making some progress here. It felt like we were stuck here, and she tried to go to the Grey Havens, and then she decided she didn't want to, and she ended up stranded at sea, and then she was found by the Numenor captain, and now she's been at Numenor for like the last 1.5 episodes basically. But this episode we're finally making some progress. So the queen had these visions using a palantir, the seeing stones that we see later in the Lord of the Rings. So apparently these stones can also grant you visions. It's not just a way to communicate between 2 people who have the stones, right? And the queen has been having these visions of the destruction of Numenor. And apparently it all starts with the arrival of Galadriel, and that is why she's been so cold to Galadriel this entire time. And basically we learned that like her dad, who was the old king before her, was still very much like pro-elf, helping the elves, because that's how they became the Numenorians. That's how they like got this land, is that they had an alliance with the elves. But basically her dad became ill, and then the people in the town started to go against the elves for some reason. They explain it, but I just kind of forgot. But yeah, basically, so she became the new ruler in her dad's place, who's all bedridden and sick now. And she's basically like, okay, we're going to do what the people want. We're not going to help the elves out. And that's why she's just been so hostile to Galadriel and her arrival and all this stuff. So they were originally going to send Galadriel off on her own. She tries to convince her, like, look, evil is rising in Middle Earth, over in, they call it the West, but it's, because they're just west of, or just east of Middle Earth is where Numenor's at. I don't have a map in front of me. Anyways, so she tries to convince her to go there to help her out, right? Like, help my great search for Sauron, right? But the queen's like, no, I saw this doom vision from the Palantir, so I'm not going to help you. And as they're shipping Galadriel away, a bunch of white petals from their great tree start flying everywhere, and that's supposed to be like this signifier of doom, So basically they all agree to help Galadriel go, complete her mission, because they're like, okay, well, that spells doom, which means we're doing the wrong thing, so we gotta help her, even though I had that vision, right? Which, by the way, that vision could be a lie, because, obviously we know that Sauron has one of the seeing stones also, right? So we know that he could be manipulating what you see out of that thing. Like, that's exactly what it did with, Pippin, right? So, lots of interesting things that could be happening along with that seeing stone. So keep an eye on that thing, because eventually, of course, it will land in the hands of Saruman, eventually. There's also a little bit of a Isildur stuff where, like, he basically flunked out of the, he wants to head west, because whenever he looks out to the horizon, he hears like this whisper, like Isildur, kind of like the ring, almost. It's kind of like the same ring. So I don't know if it's just like fate that's calling him or what, but we know what he's fated to do one day. And he ends up becoming the ring. He ends up becoming the reason that the ring survives, because he doesn't destroy it. So where this whispering is coming from, we're not entirely sure. Obviously the ring doesn't even exist yet, so, but something's calling him west, Maybe it's just like symbolic of his wanting to go west, maybe. But he basically tries to flunk out of this sailors, I don't know, class? Whatever you want to call this. He ends up getting his friends in trouble. But now they all volunteer to go with Galadriel, so hey, he gets his wish. They do get to sail, and they do get to go west. Look at that. And that's pretty much where that one ends. so it does feel like, okay, by next episode, Galadriel's finally gonna be coming back to the mainland of Middle Earth and continue her search, which is what, I do feel like this plot line was kind of like, I understand this is how you get to, Numenor and Isildur, and this is how you introduce those people, but it does feel like this could have happened a lot faster. And I know we're only on episode 4, but it's like, Galadriel, it feels like you've been stuck here forever. I don't know. I don't like it when characters are like stuck places and they have to like sit here and try and figure out a way out. And a lot of shows seem to do that. I don't know. I like forward progression. But anyways, now I don't think we see what's gonna happen with the the guy who's supposed to be the king of the Southlands, the guy who found her when they were out there in the ocean. I don't know if he's staying behind in Numenor or if he's also coming, but I'm sure we'll find out next episode. So the next plot line we get is let's go to the Southlands. So first we have our main elf protagonist guy, the soldier guy, right? He was of course captured, and now they're taking him to see Adar, who they call father, right? Like the orcs are calling this elf father. Real weird. And he shows up, and this guy's interesting. So, he's got like a messed up, half burnt face, and he seems like like, okay, this elf cares about the orcs for some reason, and then he stabs one as it's dying, and was that like a mercy killing, or is he just some kind of sick weirdo, right? Now, a big thing that's happening is that if you notice, he's wearing a gauntlet, and that like black spiked gauntlet looks a lot like the one that we see on a poster. In fact, the poster that's in this video right now, it looks a lot like that poster that we all assumed was Sauron holding his evil sword that we'll talk about in a second. So we have another contender here, guys. We have another person that could be Sauron. And that's kind of like the meme of this show right now. And I'm sure that this is at least halfway being done on purpose by the show writers, right? It's like, oh, keep you guessing, who is Sauron? So, Meteor Man is seeming a lot less like the option, because this guy seems more obviously evil and more obviously like, ooh, sinister guy. Now, of course, the truth is, Sauron can shapeshift. He can change forms. So it's obviously very possible that he is more than one character on this show, right? Very interesting. Now, if this is not Sauron, that's kind of confusing, because remember what the orcs are doing here, taking over the Southlands. What we discovered last episode is that the Southlands are what will one day become Mordor. Okay, so Mordor as a country, I guess, does not exist yet. But these Southlands and this like mountain range and the symbol that she's been following, it's gonna become Mordor one day. So, it seems all signs are pointing that this is definitely at least one version of Sauron. I'd be very shocked if it wasn't. He's wearing the damn gauntlet, right? Like it seems like pretty clear what they're doing. Also, speaking of that spiked sword, so we saw that kid had found it, and basically everyone had evacuated the Southlands, went up to the watchtower where the elves originally were, and they have to go out looking for food. So this kid goes out there with his buddy, who, like a punk, the buddy just leaves. Like, it starts getting dark outside, and he leaves this kid on his own. So now, of course, this kid's getting chased around by orcs, and at one point he brings out the hilt of this broken hilt of a sword that he found, right? And he marks himself with it, with like the end of the sword, and it leaves this mark on you, and you bleed, and of course the sword comes to life because it like absorbs your blood, right? So, he tries to swing at the orc, and he manages to get away, and the orcs are like, oh, where did you get that? The kid has the thing we're looking for, So, like, okay, so now we know for sure they're looking for that thing, right? And it seems to be Sauron's sword, again. And the kid goes back to the watchtower eventually, and he ends up talking to this guy. And apparently this guy owns the barn where he found it, and this guy knew it was there. And he's like, oh, you found that hilt, huh? and he shows him a mark on his arm, which shows that he also at one point had also like activated it. And he's like, "Oh, you're gonna need your rest, kid, for what's coming." So this guy knows something. He knows that something is happening. Is this also Sauron? Hey, for all I know, maybe it is, right? Again, Sauron could be multiple characters in this show, and that's kind of the fun thing about it. It would be real easy to say, like, yeah, he's just... Can he teleport? I don't know. Maybe he can. And maybe he's teleporting and changing forms, and he's just like, now he's this elf guy. Now he's this human guy. Now he, that would kind of be cool, So I don't know. I don't know what's happening. But whoever this guy who owns the barn is, he clearly knows something, And I think that might actually be the end of that storyline. Well, they all escape from the orcs. The elf soldier helps. Basically, the Adar left him with a message saying, surrender the Southlands and, just, you can all survive, basically, right? Like, just say, like, plead fealty to this guy, this Adar guy, and I'll let you all live. And so that's pretty much where that ends. They all managed to escape the orcs. He's the soldier, and everyone's at the watchtower now. And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the people are going to say. They're all running low on food. Everyone's hungry, and, not a great situation over there in the Southlands. But, of course, Galadriel's coming with all these Númenórean soldiers. So, are they going to come in time? Are they going to be able to stop all these orcs? Maybe. This might lead into, like, our first big battle of this series. I don't know. And let's see. So, next is the Elrond plotline. So, what we're picking up here is that, the construction has begun on this great tower that's Celebrimbor. I forget how to say his name. Celebrimbor. I'm gonna say Celebrimbor. Anyways, the guy who will one day make the rings of power. That guy. Remember, he wanted to create this big tower that he could like put a big welding, a ring making thing at the top of. I don't know what you call it. A metal smelter. I don't know what the term is. Anyways, basically wants to create this big tower so he can make the rings of power. That's all you need to know. So all the dwarves and elves have started working on it. Oh man, I am tired. It's kind of early in the morning here. Anyways, all the dwarves and elves had started working on this tower, and he's telling Elrond, like, I think they're hiding something down there. They're avoiding me. They're acting kind of weird. So he goes and visits Durin again, and they're like, oh, Durin's gone. He's just disappeared. So Elrond has to investigate on his own, and he finds this mine that, like, it's all hush hush. And Durin sees him. And he's like, hey, what are you spying on me, guy? And he's like, I just want to know what's happening here. You're keeping secrets? What's happening? What is this? And so, of course, Durin, dwarves being untrusting of elves in general, he's like, this is what you were really sent here for, isn't it? You want our stuff that we found. And it turns out to be Mithril. In which, of course, Elrond manages to convince him, like, nah, we didn't even know anything about this. That, we're not trying to take your stuff, And basically, they're just like, yeah, this Mithril stuff can essentially change everything for the dwarves. This is going to be the most rare element in the whole Middle Earth, right? This is like the stuff, which of course we know it is, basically, right? Like, it's more valuable than gold, it's more valuable than pretty much anything, and it's also like crazy useful for armor, which of course Frodo will one day have that armor on, right? So what we can obviously tell, because basically, it seems like the king was in on it, but then at the same time, Durin was like, oh, we have to sneak around the king because we're not supposed to be digging in this, cautioned, sectioned off area of the mountain, So it seems like the king is on it, but maybe he's not. I don't know. Kind of confusing. But I'm still convinced that this is basically, the more they dig for the Mithril, and this probably won't happen for a little while, I imagine, but, we have tunnels collapsing. You can see it's getting more dangerous as they keep on digging. They're definitely going to run into the Balrog, probably this season, probably while they're searching for more Mithril. and that makes a lot of sense, you know. Like, obviously, you know, I had to look it up. This is the place where the Balrog's gonna show up one day, you know. So, yeah, they're definitely gonna wake something up, because they're now they're not being as cautious as they were before, you know. And this is all more into like, hey, greed, and your search for this rare ore. You're digging up the earth, you find something, like, oops, shouldn't have woken that thing up, you know. It's all symbolic of that, you know. So I think that is the end of that plot line right there. Basically just like, oh, I found Mithril, yay, you know. And they're friends and everything's fine. Oh, and the Durin is now gonna go to, what do they call it, Lindolin? Basically where the elves are building the big tower, and they're gonna find out what they want all this for. Like, what's the purpose of all this? So we're probably gonna finally discuss what Celebrimbor is trying to do with the Rings of Power, and what, you know, why they're making all of this in the first place. And I wouldn't be surprised if Celebrimbor is like, yeah, I was approached by this other elf guy, and he started talking to me about making some rings, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. Which, of course, that is Sauron who's convinces him to do this, you know. So very interesting. It, you know, we do have a lot of plot lines happening, and because of that, the runtime is divided between all of these. So, you know, we're getting like, you know, what 20 minutes for each plot line, maybe. Which, hey, that's fine. You know, it's working, but it's also like, I can understand people's impatience with that, you know. But we are making forward progress. Things are happening. It's just, you know, it's taking its time. They're not in a hurry, and that's fine. But you can already tell, you know, now that Galadriel's heading west and the Southlands need help, you know, it feels like we are in the process of these characters reuniting and becoming, like, the plot lines converging and becoming one thing. So yeah, I can definitely see, like, within another 2 or 3 episodes, everyone's kind of involved, or at least most people are kind of involved in the same fight. You know, you're going to have Galadriel and the elf all at the Southlands. The Harfoots, I don't know where they're going. I don't know. They're just migrating. Something's going to happen with them. And then Elrond, and they're going to finish building the ring. So we're still going to have like 3 plot lines, but at least 2 of them are going to become one at sometime soon, you know. Yeah, I'm still enjoying the show, and I understand, like I said, if you don't enjoy the show, that's okay. You don't, hey, no one's making you watch it, right? Literally no one is forcing you to watch this. It's okay. And I don't know what to say. There's a lot of angry people out there who, I don't know. I've said it all before. I don't really need to go into it again, but it's just like, this is just a fantasy TV show. You know, like there's no reason to go crazy because you don't like it. Okay, just don't watch it. Just like there's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of shows you can watch right now. There's no reason to get so angry about this. People are weird. People are weird. Anyways, Rings of Power. I'm having a fun time. I can't wait to see what happens next. Hopefully we get back, you know, because if Meteor Man is not Sauron, which I'm starting to believe he's definitely not, my money is still on Saruman. And this Adar, it feels like it could be a red herring because it's so obvious, because it's so like, ooh, he looks evil, he's got that gauntlet on, the orcs are calling him father, oh, you know. But that feels so obvious, and it feels like the show might be tricking me. I guess like it makes sense for him to be Sauron. I'm just like, is the show messing with me? Is the show messing with me right now? Like, are you trying to trick me? Because I can't tell if you are or not. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next episode.